This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. Let's talk about this, man, because I truly feel like the Browns are a quarterback away. And you usually hear that phrase with teams that don't have quarterbacks, or with teams that people want to feel like are good without really any evidence of being good. But what do I mean when I say that the Browns are a quarterback away? And why do I feel more confidently at this than any other team that you would give this claim to? That's because the Cleveland Browns, this core that the Cleveland Browns have had, one, has been together forever, two, is super talented, and three, has shown evidence that they are simply a quarterback away. What do I mean by this? We can all agree that the current core of the Cleveland Browns is pretty much from 2018 to now, right? That's when the Browns made the leap from awful, winless football team to right? Some good years, some bad years, but definitely not the embarrassment that they were during the Hugh Jackson era. And when you look at that era of quarterbacks, the Browns, when they've had quarterback play above a 70 grade on Pro Football Focus, they're 26-13, which is a 66% win percentage, which means in a 17 game season, they're winning 11 games. And keep in mind that that's just over a 70 PFF grade. If we do the average of all the games that were over a 70 PFF grade and put those into like a single grade, it would be 79.2. So even in the games where they're getting good quarterback play, the majority of those games, or the average of those games, are just decent, like pretty good quarterback level play. And they're an 11-win team. Now let's bring in Deshaun Watson into the picture. Now, Deshaun Watson's last 3 full seasons average out at an 85 Pro Football grade. So that is significantly higher, 6 points higher than what the average was for the Browns, even when they get decent play and above. The Browns record, if we jump back to the Pro Football Focus grades, when they have a quarterback play a game above an 80 Pro Football Focus grade, is 15-3. That averaged out, if you took all those grades that were above 80 and you divided them up by each other, that averages out to an 87 Pro Football Focus grade, a little bit closer to Deshaun Watson's average Pro Football Focus grade over the last 3 full seasons that he's had. And the Browns' record in those games is 15-3. If they have good quarterback play, they're a playoff team. They're a perennial contender. If they have elite level quarterback play, they're an elite level team. They're one of the best teams in football. I know it's so weird for people to hear this be associated with the Cleveland Browns, especially before the Cleveland Browns have tangibly done these things on the football field. I understand that, right? The Browns have not been the symbol of excellence since Jim Brown. And since the introduction of color TV, the Browns have not been anything but like an occasionally good team to an outright mess. I understand how weird this sounds, but there has been a change in this franchise since 2018, and especially since 2020. Think about this, because we get so lost in the day-to-day being Browns fans that we really sometimes forget to zoom out and have some perspective. But think about this. This team has a ton of players who have just been here for a while. When has that ever been the case for the Cleveland Browns since they returned in 1999? It's almost never been the case, right? We're talking about David Njoku on the second contract. We're talking about Denzel Ward on the second contract. We're talking about Myles Garrett on the second contract. Hell, Joe Bitonio like on his 5th or 6th contract. Wyatt Teller's on his second contract with the club. Nick Chubb's on his second contract with the team. Like, so many mainstays, so many staples. Remember, the joke used to be that buying a Cleveland Browns jersey was one of the worst investments you can make because there was no guarantee that anybody but Joe Thomas and maybe Joe Hayden was going to be on this team long term. We had 2 players, the whole, like, if we go from 2017 all the way back to expansion, I can count 2 players that were mainstays. Joe Hayden, Joe Thomas, maybe DeQuell Jackson. We want to throw DeQuell Jackson in there and think he was here for like 5 years. That's what I'm saying. That's a massive difference. We went from like the entire 17-year history before, well, from expansion, having like 3 mainstay players on the team to having like 8 on the same team at the same time. So many guys on second contracts, right? Guys that you forget. I don't know if I mentioned David Njoku. I'm not 100% sure, but David Njoku is another guy you could throw in there. Hell, Donovan Peoples-Jones might jump his name to the list. The number of guys that the Browns develop, keep, extend, like, it's astronomically larger than it's been in this franchise's history. And look, sometimes you make the leap from worst to first. The Cincinnati Bengals did that, right? They were pretty much a laughingstock until they got Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow got hurt that one year, came back, they became a legitimate contender. Sometimes it happens like that. Sometimes it happens a little different. Sometimes the changes happen and you get, some improvement here and then you go down a little bit here, but then you get some improvement. And all along the way, you're being a more stable franchise. You're developing more young talent. You're getting ready to put yourself in position. So when you are ready to receive that guy who's going to elevate you, you're ready to receive him and ready to take that to the next level. That's the spot the Cleveland Browns have been in. It's interesting to think of this team like that, but that's really been what this team has been. I think they've been one of the better, like if we're just talking about from a personnel perspective, one of the better well-ran franchises in the NFL. They retain most of their talent. They don't cut the draft picks, but they have a pretty decent track record developing. It's not just been a couple of years with this team. We're talking about this one regime going on their 4th year, which when was the last time? I think Butch Davis might have been the last coach. We got to a 4th year in Cleveland. So things are changing here. And then you look at the team and then you see the cold hard evidence. When they have decent quarterback play, they're a pretty damn good team. When they have great quarterback play, they're one of the hardest teams to beat in football. The question is, can they get it? And this is probably, like, if you look at this stuff, if you're the Cleveland Browns, you look at this and you know this about your team. This is why they make the move to get Deshaun Watson. This is why they don't just sit there and say, hey, we'll just settle with Baker Mayfield and see what we can get. Because when elite is on the table, you have to take your chances at it. And that's what they're taking a chance at with Deshaun Watson, right? Baker Mayfield, we knew the ceiling on him was going to be pretty good. He hasn't lived up to that ceiling since he's left Cleveland. But if he were in a stable situation, if he had a better relationship with Kevin Stefanski, if he was more willing to do things a certain different way, he could definitely be a solid quarterback in the NFL. His ego kind of got in the way with that. But you make the move to get Deshaun Watson because hey, if we can get that elite level quarterback play, right, that 85 and above level quarterback play, we all of a sudden go from a team that might get to the second round of playoffs like they did in 2020 to a force, right? There's a huge difference between 26-13 and 15-3. That's a difference. That's a Super Bowl team on one hand. The other team is a team that's a good story. That's why the Browns decided to make that move with Deshaun Watson. And that's what's most interesting about this season, because what are we going to get from Deshaun Watson? I think ironically enough, the range for him is probably between an 80 Pro Football Focus grade and that 87 Pro Football Focus grade, right? I think he'll play somewhere within that range. Well, if he hits the high end of that range, we're one of the best teams in football. If he hits that low end of that range, well, we're an 11-win team. We're not going to be upset about that. We're not going to complain about that, but it's going to be a little underwhelming because we know Deshaun is capable of more. The quarterback position is so important in football. It can't go understated. This roster is good. It's been good since 2018. This roster has been ready since 2018. This team has been ready for a very long time. The thing that's held this team back time and time again has been consistency at the quarterback position. When they have it, they're a damn good football team. When they don't, they stink. Well, not stink, they're mediocre. That's where this team is at. This is truly a team that's a quarterback away. Even just look at the history. You don't even got to look at the splits like I showed them out for you. 2018, at the end of 2018, the Browns had pretty good quarterback play. They were a pretty hard team to beat, right? 2019, they got no consistent quarterback play. They stunk. No mistake. 2020, they got consistent quarterback play for almost the whole year. They were a really good team that year. 11-5, won a playoff game. Took the Chiefs to the limit. But then 2021 rolls around, we get inconsistent quarterback play again. We stink. It's not a mistake. It's not a coincidence. Hell, even when Jacoby Brissett was in here playing good football, we won games behind that. Quarterback play wasn't consistent by any means, but when we got it, we won. We looked good. The first 4 weeks, we felt good about the team. This is the difference. The Cleveland Browns have been a quarterback away since 2018. They've been making moves to try to get that quarterback since 2018. They thought it was Baker for a little while. Then Baker showed that it wasn't him. They went to Deshaun Watson. Now it's up to Deshaun to show that it's him. But this team, this roster has been, is, and will be a quarterback away. The question is, will they finally get the quarterback play that they've been begging for? Because if they do, they're an elite football team. Hell, even if he somewhat underperforms, they're a really good football team. But that's where the Cleveland Browns are at. We can complain about defensive tackle. We could complain about linebacker. We could be worried about the secondary. There's a lot of things that you could talk about that aren't the quarterback position with this team. And that's very true. And those conversations need to be had, and they're going to be had. But the bottom line is, if Deshaun Watson's good, this team will be great. If Deshaun Watson is great, this team will be excellent. Even if the defensive tackles stink. Even if the linebackers are bad. Even if the secondary still got some bad habits to unlearn. That's the power of quarterback play. So I hear all these teams being talked. I hear the Jets. I hear all these teams talked about as being a quarterback away. But nobody's talking about the real team that's been a quarterback away since 2018, and that's the Cleveland Browns. That's all I want to say. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.